Well, good afternoon, everyone, and today is an important day for families and schools as we make truly important steps forward toward the return of in-person learning in the fall. But before we get there, I'd like to turn it over to our IDPH Director, Dr. Ngozi Ezike, to kick us off with today's medical update. Doctor?
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to begin today with a quick update on the COVID-19 related metrics for cases, hospitalizations, and of course, our fatalities. So the good news is that Illinois has seen declining cases and declining fatality totals week after week for the past 5 consecutive weeks. I commend every resident of Illinois for thinking of your neighbors across the state during this ongoing battle against COVID-19. Lives are in your hands, and you've saved so many with your actions. These actions have given Illinois a leg up against this virus. Since yesterday, we are reporting 601 people who were newly diagnosed with COVID-19 for a statewide total since the beginning of this pandemic of 137,825 cases. That does include 38 additional fatalities for a total of 6,707 lives lost. But let's recall that at our highest, we reported 4,000 cases within a single 24-hour period. That was about 6 weeks ago, and we reported 191 deaths on May 13th. But as of last night, 1,648 individuals were reported to be hospitalized with COVID-19, and of those, 424 patients were in the ICU and 236 patients were on ventilators. We peaked at over 5,000 patients in the hospital with COVID-19 and 1,290 ICU patients on April 28th. So we are delighted to see how far we've come and how many fewer patients we have hospitalized with COVID-19. Please forget what you've heard. Increased testing is a good thing. Testing capacity across the state continues to grow. To date, 1,399,000 tests have been run, with 20,507 being reported in the last 24 hours. The highest number of specimens reported in a single 24-hour period was last Wednesday, when nearly 30,000 tests were reported. These are all positive signs and affirm that the steps we have taken to slow the spread of COVID-19 are indeed working. So as we move forward, we need to get back to the things that we have been putting on hold. Now is the time to schedule your kids back to school physicals if you haven't already. We need to make sure that the kids get checked out by their providers and get their life-saving immunizations. Earlier during the pandemic, we have seen a decline in immunization. So now it's time to catch up. No more waiting. Doctor's orders. In Illinois, we have seen that the pandemic has had significant impact on students and their families, as well as the educators and the school staff. Learning and socialization that happens within school are keys to our success as a community. Yes, there could be another surge of COVID-19 in the fall or perhaps earlier, but let's make sure we take this opportunity now to get to our doctors. Let's get our immunizations, let's get our health screenings, let's get as healthy as we can. Your baseline health status affects how you fare against this virus. This includes parents and teachers too. Get your blood work done, your mammogram. I went for my mammogram this morning. Get your colonoscopies. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Let's continue to do what we know works. I saw somewhere that they referred to it as the 3 W's, and so I'm going to be using this. Wash your hands, watch your distance, you know that's referring to the 6 feet, and wear a face covering. Let's not lose ground. Lives are in our hands. Thank you so much. And I will summarize the same comments in Spanish. Buenas tardes a todos. Comienzo hoy con el reporte de números relacionados a COVID-19 para casos, hospitalizaciones y muertes. Pero primero hay buenas noticias. Illinois ha visto una disminución en el total de casos y muertes semana tras semana durante las últimas 5 semanas. Felicito a todos por pensar en sus vecinos de todo el estado durante esta batalla contra COVID-19. Sus acciones hasta ahora han dado a Illinois una oportunidad de luchar contra este virus. Desde ayer estamos reportando 601 personas confirmadas con COVID-19 para un total de 137,825 casos en el estado. Desafortunadamente, eso incluye 38 muertes adicionales reportadas para un total de 6,707 vidas perdidas. Hay mucho tiempo que no han hablado español. A partir de la noche anterior, se informó que 1,648 personas en Illinois fueron hospitalizadas con COVID-19. De ellos, 424 pacientes estaban en la unidad de cuidados intensivos y 236 pacientes estaban en ventiladores. No crea lo que oíste. Más pruebas es una cosa buena. La capacidad de pruebas en todo el estado continúa creciendo. Hasta la fecha, se han ejecutado más de 1,000,000 pruebas con 20,000 reportadas en las últimas 24 horas. Todos estos son signos positivos y afirman que los pasos que hemos tomado para parar la propagación de COVID-19 han funcionado. Nosotros salvamos vidas. Gracias a todos. A medida que avanzamos, necesitamos volver a las cosas que hemos estado poniendo en espera. Ahora es el momento de hacer cita para el examen físico, de regreso a la escuela de su hijo o su hija, recibir las vacunas para prevenir las enfermedades graves. Durante la pandemia, vimos una disminución en las vacunas, pero ahora es el momento de hacerlo. No hay que esperar. Esto es un orden del Dr. Ezequiel. En Illinois, esta pandemia ha tenido un impacto significativo en los estudiantes y sus familias, también en los educadores y los trabajadores de la escuela. La educación y la socialización son claves para el éxito de los estudiantes dentro y fuera del salón. Podemos ver más problemas con COVID-19 en el otoño, así que tómese el tiempo ahora para ir al médico, vacunarse y hacerse exámenes de salud y recuperarse. Esto también incluye a los padres y maestros. Haga su análisis de sangre, sus mamografías, sus colonoscopías. Cuídate y cuida a su familia. Continúa haciendo lo que sabemos que funciona. Por favor, escúchame. Póngase un cubrecara. Lávense sus manos y mantenga un espacio entre ustedes y los demás. Vamos en buen rumbo, pero tenemos que seguir adelante. Hagamos nuestra parte para salvar vidas. Muchísimas gracias. And with that, I will turn it back over to Governor Pritzker.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ezike. I'm very glad to be here today with the Executive Director of the Illinois Association of School Boards, Dr. Tom Bertrand, the President of the Illinois Association of School Boards, Tom Neely, State Superintendent of Education, Dr. Carmen Ayala, Illinois Community College Board Executive Director, Dr. Brian Durham, and Illinois Board of Higher Education Executive Director, Ginger Ostro. We are here today to talk about one of the most important aspects of the Restore Illinois plan, and that's the return of in-person learning in Phase 4 of Restore Illinois. Over the last month, under our Phase 3 Community Recovery Order, thousands of our small businesses in nearly every municipality around the state have opened their doors again safely. Kids across the state have been permitted to return to day camps, youth sports, and child care and summer school programs, giving them access to crucial summer enrichment and helping parents return to work. As we reopen aspects of our daily lives that coronavirus took away, it's important to emphasize that the virus has not gone away. It is still affecting and infecting people, some of whom are hospitalized and have severe complications. Important in our Restore Illinois plan has been our careful tracking of the data in each phase and following the science. It's our behavior that has made all the difference. As we have reopened business and leisure activities, Illinois has done better than almost every other highly populated state at reducing our positivity rates, hospitalizations, and intensive care bed use. And as a result, we've seen dramatic declines in COVID-19 deaths across our state. As of today, every region in the Restore Illinois plan is on track to begin Phase 4 just 3 days from now on Friday. That's a true testament to the people of Illinois who have taken this pandemic seriously and practiced the doctor-recommended mitigations, such as maintaining 6 feet of physical distance, wearing a face covering when in public places, and washing our hands regularly. These new habits we have all been learning over the last 4 months must be reinforced now and every day going forward. Without a vaccine, these will make all the difference between what will happen here in Illinois over the coming months and what we see happening right now in other parts of the nation that have reopened too quickly and without mitigations. The responsible decision-making by most Illinoisans should give us all confidence as we move toward the new school year beginning in the fall. Classroom learning provides necessary opportunities for our students to learn, socialize, and grow. The benefits of in-person instruction can't be overstated. Today, IASB, IBHE, and ICCB are issuing guidance that will serve as baseline public health requirements and expectations for the return of in-person learning this fall in P-12 schools and in higher education, including all public school districts, non-public schools, colleges, and universities. In close consultation with IDPH, infectious disease experts at the University of Illinois at Chicago, and other public health professionals, the guidance focuses on keeping students, teachers, and families healthy and safe. It recognizes that Illinois is a diverse state, and school districts and institutions of higher learning across Illinois will face unique challenges in how they'll operate within their communities. Based upon state guidance, each school district and each university will develop and implement a reopening plan that meets the needs of their community and the children that they serve. But on a large scale, these guidelines align with the broader requirements of Phase 4, including the wearing of masks or face coverings, a cap on 50-person gatherings in one space, the observance of social distancing wherever possible, and an increase in school-wide cleanings and disinfections, including symptom checks. It's important to note that this guidance is subject to adjustment pursuant to updated public health guidance and changing public health conditions. In the event of a dramatic reversal of local health metrics or a second wave of the virus at some point during the school year, schools and districts must also prepare for the potential need to return to remote instruction. I recently signed into law legislation to provide relief to schools and districts during public health emergencies, including the option to implement remote and blended remote learning days during disaster proclamations, which give local school districts additional flexibility. I have every faith that as we look ahead to the fall, our teachers, our professors, and our administrators will continue to do what they do best, dedicating their days to ensuring every student in this state receives the education that they deserve. One of the most essential mitigations we have for keeping people safe during this pandemic are face coverings. I'm proud to announce today that the Illinois Emergency Management Agency plans to provide cloth masks to every student, teacher, and staff member in every public school district in Illinois. Over 2.5 million masks at no cost to the districts. In Illinois, a child's ability to afford or acquire a face covering should have no impact on whether they can go to school, and it won't. Additionally, to help school districts obtain the supplies that they need to reopen safely at an affordable price, IASB and the Chief Procurement Office Bureau of Strategic Sourcing have secured several joint purchase agreements that K-12 districts can use to obtain safety supplies like hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies, and personal protective equipment at prices more competitive than purchasing on their own. Some are available now, and the team is working to expand the number of contracts over the coming weeks. In addition to offering support to our higher education ecosystem, the Federal CARES Act directed resources to our P-12 schools, over $510 million, of which will go to school districts to address local needs in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As of June 19th, 580 of our more than 800 local education agencies had applied for their funding share, and 534 have already been approved. Dr. Ayala and I are encouraging all districts to use this funding to close the digital divide by providing devices and internet connectivity, and are directing the majority of the remaining funding to purchasing laptops, tablets, virtual coaching for new teachers, and internet connectivity to advance a vision of equity for our schools and keep our kids on track for success. In short, we are building on the same goals that we've pushed since the beginning of my administration, creating a pipeline of high-quality learning from cradle to career. Throughout this spring, I was so impressed to see all the creative ways that superintendents and teachers adapted to the pandemic, a spirit of ingenuity that stretched up into our higher education institutions, too. That work, that compassion, has never been more important than it is right now. This pandemic has heightened every inequality and injustice in our nation. And it is our educators who are on the front lines of seeing our young people through this moment and making sure that we build a better world on the other side. Now I'd like to turn it over to the leader at the forefront of our efforts to make Illinois the best state in the nation for P-12 education, our State Superintendent of Education, and that's Dr. Carmen Ayala.
I'm excited to welcome our students back to school buildings this fall. Illinois is on track to enter Phase 4 as the result of effective social distancing measures implemented across the state. Thank you, Governor Pritzker, for your leadership in protecting the health and safety of all Illinois residents. Having been a district superintendent in Illinois, I completely understand the urgency of getting information out to the field as quickly as possible. At the same time, the stakes have never been higher for us to adhere to the most current science and data. Meeting this standard has meant deep collaboration with public health experts, and so I want to thank Dr. Ezike and her team for their tireless partnership with us. The Illinois State Board of Education and the Illinois Department of Public Health work together to develop the requirements and recommendations for schools to reopen this fall while keeping students, staff, and their loved ones safe and healthy. we engaged an advisory group of 56 educators, administrators, nurses, social workers, parents, and students to ensure that our guidance reflects the incredible diversity of our 852 school districts. In Illinois, we have high school districts, elementary districts, and unit districts. We have districts with pre-K and districts without. We have public schools and non-public schools. Reopening in southern Illinois is not the same as in suburban or in urban Illinois. As much as possible, we have tried to provide common and clear requirements while preserving flexibility for each school and district to develop a reopening plan that meets the needs of the community and the children that they serve. The physical classroom offers rich opportunities for academic and social and emotional learning, where children can receive the supports and resources that they need, and with the face-to-face care and attention of their friends and teachers who can notice in real time if they need extra help or someone to talk to. Our mission of equity compels us to ensure that all students can attend school in person this fall to the greatest extent possible. There are minimum public health requirements that schools and districts must meet as they create local reopening plans. These measures are proven and they are necessary to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Families can expect more information from their schools and districts about what their local reopening plans mean for them. The Illinois State Board of Education strongly encourages schools and districts to maximize in-person instruction for all students. This may require some creative scheduling, but we know our incredible teachers and school leaders are up to the task, and we're here to help work them through any challenges that they may face. This fall will not be business as usual, and we will update our guidance as needed in response to challenging and changing public health conditions. Schools and districts must be prepared to return to remote learning if the virus surges again. The Illinois State Board of Education will continue to engage in open dialogue as we have done from the onset of this pandemic, to give students the greatest opportunity to recover, to re-engage, and to grow this fall. Thank you. Estoy emocionada de darles la bienvenida a los estudiantes a regresar a la escuela este otoño. Me da mucho gusto ver que nuestro estado, Illinois, entra a la fase 4 como resultado del distanciamiento social implementado en todo el estado. Gracias, gobernador, por su liderazgo en la protección de la salud y la seguridad de todos los habitantes en nuestro estado. Gracias a la dedicación de los habitantes de Illinois que se han quedado en casa, han lavado sus manos, han usado coberturas para la boca en estos últimos meses. Algunos estudiantes de Illinois volverán a los salones de clase cuando el nuevo año escolar comience este otoño. Los maestros y las familias han hecho grandes esfuerzos para mantener a los niños motivados y comprometidos durante el aprendizaje remoto. La Agencia de Educación y el Departamento de Salud Pública han desarrollado requisitos y recomendaciones para que las escuelas reinicien el aprendizaje en persona este otoño, manteniendo la salud y la seguridad es nuestra prioridad. Los requisitos de la salud pública que las escuelas deben cumplir cuando regresen en persona durante la fase 4 son exigir el uso de equipo de protección personal apropiado, incluyendo las coberturas de la boca, prohibir que más de 50 personas se reúnan en un espacio, requerir el distanciamiento social tanto como sea posible, llevar a cabo exámenes de síntomas y chequeos de temperatura o requerir una autocertificación de los individuos que entran en los edificios escolares indicando que están libres de síntomas. y aumentar la limpieza y desinfección de toda la escuela. La guía pública hoy incluye los requisitos mínimos de salud pública que los distritos escolares tienen que cumplir al crear sus propios planes de reapertura que son únicos para sus comunidades escolares. IASB anima fuertemente a las escuelas y los distritos a maximizar la instrucción en persona para todos los estudiantes durante sus procesos de planificación. IASB se enorgullece en anunciar hoy que podremos ofrecer 2,5 millones de máscaras gratis a los distritos escolares para apoyar el cumplimiento del requisito de que todos los estudiantes y el personal lleven coberturas de la boca en todo momento. Este otoño no será como de costumbre. Los distritos escolares también deben prepararse para volver al aprendizaje remoto si el virus surge de nuevo. Un regreso seguro este otoño le dará a los estudiantes la mayor oportunidad de recuperar y crecer en su educación. El Illinois State Board of Education continuará participando en el diálogo, como lo hemos hecho desde el comienzo de esta pandemia, para ofrecer sugerencias y trabajar con los desafíos que los distritos escolares pueden enfrentar. Vamos a seguir actualizando nuestras guías como sea necesario para responder a los cambios de las condiciones de la salud pública. Gracias. I will now introduce Mr. Tom Bertrand, the Executive Director of the Illinois Association of School Boards.
Thank you, Dr. Ayala. I'm pleased to be here today as a representative of the 848 school boards that are members of the Illinois Association of School Boards, IASB. Nearly 6,000 elected school board members are in service to nearly 2 million public school students across this state. And on behalf of IASB, I want to extend our appreciation and thanks to Governor Pritzker and his team, along with Dr. Ayala, for their leadership during this unprecedented time. Please know that Illinois school board members understand and are grateful for your efforts and for your sincere concern for the safety and well-being of students, staff, and families who are served by our public schools. We're proud of the amazing work that took place in public schools last spring as schools quickly pivoted to online and remote learning. We know the work of our staff was extraordinary as they continued to serve our students, families, and communities during an unprecedented time. We know that during a national crisis, schools are often the institutions best positioned to address the academic and social emotional needs of children and the basic needs of so many families. It is important to connect every child with caring, committed, competent educators, starting with the first day of school. The opportunity to return to school for in-person learning is an important step toward establishing that connection that is so important to the academic and social emotional growth of our students. We applaud the governor's efforts to provide a path for the safe return of our children to in-person learning. The guidance released today acknowledges that a one-size-fits-all approach to the reopening of schools doesn't consider the context of each school community. School districts need flexibility to make decisions based upon the sometimes rapidly changing conditions in their communities. Certainly our schools will be challenged to be nimble. This could include shifting from in-person to remote learning when warranted, or even a blended approach to reopening our schools. We know a welcoming, safe, and supportive environment for every student and every staff member is the foundation upon which learning occurs. I know we all look forward to a day when students and staff can return to school without masks, resume their field trips, and other meaningful co-curricular and extracurricular activities. But Illinois school boards are remaining committed to ensuring that all of our students have the opportunity to return to a healthy and supportive environment in which all students can learn and thrive. Again, a sincere thanks to Governor Pritzker and his team for providing a path forward for the safe return to in-person learning for our students. I'd now like to turn it over to Ginger Ostro, Executive Director of Illinois Board of Higher Education.
Thank you, Tom. I would like to thank the governor for his leadership through these unprecedented times. We've all benefited because you have guided us by science and public health. And thank you, Dr. Ezike, for your steadfast commitment to keeping us all safe. Let me also thank the members of the Fall Opening Committee who worked tirelessly to provide their expertise and help shape the higher ed guidelines that we're releasing today. We heard from over 20 presidents, faculty, staff, and public health experts from our public universities, our private universities, and community colleges. They were guided by a set of principles that put campus health and safety first and kept focus on student success, emphasizing equity and the need of our under-resourced and underserved students. I would also like to acknowledge the concurrent work led by Brian Durham and the Illinois Community College Board in his Return to Campus Committee, composed of institutional leaders, faculty, and staff from the state's community college system. They were similarly driven by those same core principles of health and safety first and student success. Together, these efforts complement each other so that we have robust guidance that will ensure our campuses can open safely this fall. And that is vitally important because we know the path to personal success runs right through our colleges and universities. Now, more than ever, a college degree or credential is a stepping stone to the jobs of the future. And that is especially true for students who are first in their families to go to college, students of color, and those who are low income. These guidelines will ensure that our colleges and universities are ready for those students. We say to them, don't let COVID-19 throw you off your college path. Stay on course for your credential or degree when schools open this fall. Thank you, and now I hand it back to the governor.
Happy to take any questions from members of the media.
First of all, thank you, Governor. A couple of questions about some of the guidelines. 50 in one space at a time. Does that mean 50 in a school building or 50 in a classroom?
It's in a space, so obviously many schools are large enough to have gatherings in different rooms, and I would refer you, of course, to the team of experts who helped to put the plan together to talk about how in different school districts, I might particularly point at Tom without putting him on the spot, but how in various school districts that will work, because it will be different in different school districts just by the nature of the size of the rooms, the type of building it is, the number of kids who attend, and so on.
So each district will decide whether everybody comes every day or they come alternate days. Might that lead to disparities between wealthier districts and not so wealthy districts who might be able to accommodate more in-person learning?
There are real challenges, there's no doubt, because the schools are, again, configured differently. The ability of kids to get to school in the morning is another challenge potentially because of the number of kids who can get into a school bus at one time and so on. And that's why remote learning is so important and why we've dedicated a significant number of dollars to helping school districts overcome the challenges that they had, starting back in March, but this summer specifically to help them, because there will be cases where kids are taking courses or at least portion of their courses from home on certain days and at school on other days.
If you test positive, what is the recommendation for the teacher, the student, the worker at the school?
Well, again, we've given a lot of guidance about what should happen in businesses, and that's also true in schools. That is to say, people without being able to get tested need to remove themselves to socially distance and isolate for a period of time so that they can make sure that they don't have it or that they won't transmit it to anybody else.
What's that period of time?
14 days is typically the amount of time. And again, if testing is available and they go get the testing, that can be shortened.
And the cloth masks that will be given out, I'm a former teacher, I just think, I wonder what will happen. Might they get dirty?
Lose them,
Might
yeah.
they lose them?
Yeah.
Why not disposable?
Well, I think
What do you do at lunch?
part of it is that the recommendation, sorry, go ahead, what do you do?
What do you do at lunchtime?
Well, I think it's what everybody has been doing. I think we've all had the circumstance where you're wearing a face covering during the course of the day, and you might sit down. There might be somebody who's 6 foot distant from you that you're enjoying lunch with, and you obviously can't wear your mask while your face covering while you're doing that. So people will have to keep track of that during lunchtime. But I want to point out that cloth face coverings have often been recommended by the CDC. That doesn't mean that a surgical mask or some other covering isn't also beneficial. But we wanted to make sure that there were quality face coverings available to every child. But again, I think if everybody, even as you know, everybody wearing a surgical mask or an N95 mask or any other kind of potentially disposable mask, as long as everybody is wearing them, there's a significant amount of safety involved in that.
I have several off topic. If you want,
A couple of on topic. Governor, just to follow up on Mary Ann, if a student or students do test positive, what does that mean for a school? Is it a classroom? What are the next steps?
Again, there'll be decisions. I mean, I want to look at Dr. Ezike first, because I think that she'll give you the medical answer to that question. The recommendation, obviously, is that anybody who's been in contact, it's the same recommendation as if you went into work one day and found out that somebody that you worked with had COVID-19, had contracted COVID-19 and been confirmed to have it. You should isolate, you should go get a test and so on, and that'll be the recommendation in a school as well. But Dr. Ezike, do you want to add to that?
So like the governor is saying, the rules and the management doesn't really change. If somebody is positive, they do have to stay home. They would have to isolate. There's a minimum of 10 days from when you began symptoms and 72 hours of the symptoms relenting. So that guidance doesn't change. In terms of what happens in the classroom, obviously you have to identify, the people who have, the guidance is if, 15 to 30 minutes of close contact within 6 feet without coverings, those are the people that are considered, close contacts that would also now have to quarantine, waiting to see if they develop symptoms, and that quarantine period is actually 14 days. And so those measures would still go into effect anytime somebody's positive. The local health department would still get in contact and then help with the investigations to identify the people who would have to either, well, of course, the affected person would be home, but then identify who the close contacts were who would also have to quarantine while awaiting to see if they develop symptoms over the 14-day period. And then, of course, there would be extensive disinfecting of the area, of the classroom, of the spaces in which the affected individual would have come in contact with, to make sure that all surfaces and spaces are cleaned and appropriately disinfected.
I also want to just emphasize how important the county and local public health departments are in this process, right? As decisions get made at a local school, they'll be consulting with their county public health department or local, if they have a local public health department.
That kind of relates to my last on topic question is, with these districts being able to come up with their own reopening plans, what kind of review process exists as far as potential safety concerns that EPH might have, or as far as local school, local county health administrators might have?
Dr. Ayala, do you want to talk about that? This is something State Board of Education has been working on.
As I mentioned, we have 852 separate and distinct districts. I think that you will find the guidance that the Illinois State Board of Education is putting out is rather complete and tries to address as many situations as possible. And so if there were a case that there was a question or a concern, certainly contacting the county health department in the area would be the very first step that would need to be taken. At this point in time, they will not be reviewed in the agency per se. And so it is the collaboration between the district administrators, the school administrators, and their respective county health departments to work together in developing the plan that meets the needs of their respective community.
We have very strong teamwork with the county public health departments and local public health departments, and They're aware that they're going to be consulted. Remember, the school districts themselves have every interest, all of them, right? I mean, every superintendent, every teacher, every person that works in the school, paraprofessional, not to mention the students and the families, all have the same interest, which is to keep these children and the people who work there safe. And so, the county public health department working together, answering questions, trying to develop the right sort of plan for each district makes sense.
Masks for K through 12, everybody?
Yes, obviously, if they're medically if it's medically necessary for them not to wear one, that's obviously acceptable.
Dana Kozlov is asking, CPS is the largest district in the state. Has spoken to Mayor Lightfoot about this? Is she on board? And what about the teachers' union?
Yeah, remember that we're setting guidelines for the entire state in local schools, not to mention in municipalities. They have the ability, as with everything about Restore Illinois, to have more stringent guidelines. And so, we've obviously talked about this with most of the major school boards, school districts, to make sure that we're encompassing, whatever concerns they might have and giving them some flexibility.
And so they've been consulting and they're on board.
Yeah, we've had numerous staff members on my staff talking to numerous staff members at CPS as well as at the mayor's office.
Hannah Mizell wants to know, how will ISB enforce the guidelines? Will there be penalties for schools who do not follow them? Will funds be withheld?
Again, because there's such a strong common interest, of everybody involved in a school district, that there's no effort here to look to punish people. The whole idea here, everybody has the same common interest to keep these children and the people who work there safe. So, no.
Would you also offer face shields besides the mask?
Again, that's going to be something that at the school district level, they can look at. I told you about the ability of every school district to access PPE, the kind of PPE that we may not be providing for free to them, PPE that they'll need at the local level, which, by the way, the federal government has provided some money to school districts for. So face shields certainly is another answer to face coverings.
Some off-topic questions that came in even before the news conference from Craig Wall. Movie theater owners say they were blindsided yesterday by your Phase 4 guidelines for that industry. Based on discussions with your office, they had been expecting that the capacity for theaters would be 50% and up to 250 people. What happened and why was the number reduced to just 50?
Well, I want to be clear to anybody that had expectations of something larger that there is the opportunity for us to do that at any moment, going forward as we look and see. Remember, when we change guidelines, when we move from one phase to another, what we're looking to do is to measure how are we doing in hospitalizations, how are we doing in positivity rates. If we start to see things moving up, forget spiking. If we see things moving upward, we want to watch them closely. And it's over time that you see, well, if things are relatively stable or even decreasing, as we saw, interestingly, during Phase 3, even though we opened up quite a lot in Phase 3, the answer is you can make adjustments along the way, and we certainly will.
And perhaps even this summer, when the summer movies come out, there might even be?
Sure, although as you know, there have been, it's been hard for production houses to get productions going, although I must say that I've had conversations with people who want to film in Chicago movies and TV about getting back to their production schedules, and they're putting together their own plans for doing that.
From Lisa Parker, on the steady complaints from consumers who cannot still reach IDES, state legislative staffers are also venting about their inability to help constituents get any reply from the department. What, if any, improvements are underway?
Well,
Why,
oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
And why hasn't the department reopened any of its field offices as other state offices have?
So there is a process for every department coming back to having in-person offices, right, and having our staff in person. It sort of depends on the locations. It depends upon the number of people that would normally be in that space and so on, right? We have health guidance for people who work at IDES just like we do at any other business or that we're trying to reopen. So that's one aspect of it. Another is that we have been, I think you've heard that the IDES director has been vocal about attempting to hire more people. We have positions that are open at IDES, and they are, in fact, out there looking for people to fill those positions. There are lots of open positions, and they've been advertising for them in the normal processes, trying to bring people in, interview them, and get them into positions. In addition to that, as you know, we have an external call center. We're trying to divide out. There are many people that call that don't have a specific question about their case, or what I mean to say is it isn't a matter of privacy related to their case. It's a matter of, I don't know how to do the following thing. Can you explain how to do that? And that is a call that does not need to be handled by someone who is trained by federal standards, and therefore can be answered by more of a help desk function. And so we've tried to divide out those calls so that we can get to the calls that are specific to individuals. We also have tried to train staff people and the elected leaders, not just leaders, elected officials themselves, on how they can assist people with their applications in the event that they're having trouble getting through on the phone. Again, I want to encourage people who can do this, who can go online, to go online. And I've seen the numbers. You know, we can process lots and lots of online applications and redeterminations, but you know, it's harder. Just the sheer number of phone lines, the number of people available means that there's a more limited capability to answer the phones. But we've increased that number. We have increased that number, and we're out looking for people.
Greg Bishop is asking, what specifically are you looking for as a therapeutic? Are you deferring that determination to federal health officials? And what timeline is acceptable for moving to phase 5?
Yeah, we're not making decisions about therapeutics at the state level. That's really going to be an FDA decision. And of course, there are a lot of trials out there that are ongoing. The federal government provided us with remdesivir to distribute, and we did, and it's actually been somewhat effective, as we now understand, at hospitals where they have used it. So that's what I would say about therapeutics, not really the realm of state government. Having said that, we're encouraging hospitals to be part of trials. We want Illinois to be an epicenter for the approval of therapeutics. And obviously we want them to, the effective ones, to be used on the patients that we have here in the state of Illinois. As to phase 5, what will it take? Was that his question, to move to phase 5? Again, you know, the whole idea here is, you know, if the question is, when can you drop your face covering? You know, when can everything go back to what it was like in January or December or October, November or October? The answer is that, you know, that's an answer that scientists would tell you and that I'm listening to, which is it takes either a very effective, what you're referring to as a therapeutic, a treatment that will keep people out of the hospital and make it more like just having the flu at home, or a vaccine. And I think we're all desperately watching, hoping, praying that there will be something developed in the near future. But, you know, you talk about phase 5, you could call it whatever you like. This is just a question about whether or not, you know, can we get back to what we all knew as normal, you know, before this year. And I think the answer is what I just said. Call it what you like, phase 5 or back to normalcy, but that's what it would be.
All right, Mark Maxwell is asking, was it your intention to open the door for pro and college sports or large concerts in phase 4? Why do you think a gathering of thousands of people outdoors is safe?
Well, we're watching very carefully. Like I said, I think Mark and anybody else that's been involved, you know, paying attention here, can see that everything that we're doing is evolving based on the science. As we learn more, you know, at the beginning, people said, oh, you know, masks. You know, who needs a mask? Unless you have an N95 mask, it's not effective, right? That's what the original suggestion was by CDC and by doctors, epidemiologists. As we learned more, and as they learned more about the virus, they changed their view on that. And now we can see that there is serious reduction of transmission when both people are wearing a face covering cloth or surgical or otherwise. I use that as simply an analogy for we'll be evolving as we move along here, as the science moves along, as we see whether, well, gee, you know, as transmission rates have gone down, positivity rates have gone down, testing has gone up, and so on, maybe we will see, as we have moved through these phases, seeing that as it turns out, if people sitting outside at a restaurant in this phase that we're in now has not caused a significant amount of transmission. Indeed, I don't know examples right now of where that has happened. Having said that, you know, what we said as a result of that was, okay, well, maybe now we can consider how much indoor activity could be managed. And so to the question of, you know, can college sports go on? I think, again, it's sort of sports dependent in part, right? Runners, you know, who can run at some distance from one another or being timed perhaps, might be different than, you know, college football. I'm not going to make that decision, but I certainly will be listening to the experts about it.
Hannah is asking, Governor, you signed an executive order at the end of last month requiring long-term care facilities to make a plan for COVID-19 testing, but IDPH is not requiring those plans to be turned in, only to be made available if the agency asks for them. Where's the accountability there? How can you know if these nursing homes have actually made the plan?
Well, I'm going to turn that over to our director.
So we're working very closely now. We have multiple mandates from the federal government, from CMS, regarding how we're handling the nursing homes. That involves focused infection control surveys for all of the facilities, as well as some other surveys that have to take place. We're obviously monitoring where outbreaks are taking place, and so we have very strict guidelines in terms of, you know, when can visitation happen in a place that has had an outbreak. So we know where the outbreaks are. We know which places we've had to take a special look at. So we are working closely. Most facilities understand that if they want to get out of an outbreak, that involves aggressive testing. And so, you know, all the facilities know that there's testing. We're making testing help available. A lot of times the facilities say, we've got it under control. You know, our medical staff can do it, and we can help them with getting the testing, the specimens to a lab for the actual resulting. So we are working closely, and we're trying to work collaboratively. We have the same vested interest of taking care of our most vulnerable members of society. So yes, if it comes to the point where there's an outbreak that has been identified and someone is not participating in testing, that's when you might get a little bit more heavy-handed to say, hey, you know, we'll come in and do the testing, and if they say not, then we can remind people of the, you know, of the emergency rule and the things associated with that. But again, we're trying to work together to take care of these residents in the facilities, and I think because of our common aim, we can do that working together as opposed to trying to carry a club.
I have one more for you. In an interview with the Sun-Times, you talked about handshaking, and you said not now, between a year and never again. Can you explain why?
No, I think now that we know how much can get passed from person to person, we just have to be very careful. I think I also said, you know, all of that would be a different answer if I knew that I had a pocket tester, a pocket COVID tester, where I could find out in a moment's notice, like, you know, who has the virus and who doesn't. So, you know, there's a lot of different things at play. If there was also a cure or a vaccine where this is not going to be a deadly virus or wouldn't cause as many fatalities, if I'm not worried that, you know, people in my household who are high risk or my mother could contract it if I got it, and that there wouldn't be a cure for her if she, you know, got very ill, like that's the situation we are in now. But I think, I'm hoping, I'm praying that won't be the situation, you know, for much longer. So again, all those things can change. But again, we know that you know, if someone doesn't wear face coverings or they don't promote it in an establishment, I think we have the right, and it's the right decision to say maybe that's not an establishment that I want to go to. And right now, you know, with the virus being everywhere and we don't quite know who has it, and we're not quite where we want to be with being able to have testing all the time, then let's be careful with some of those things that, you know, might transmit the virus. So that was what I was speaking to.
Governor Kelly from Chicago, what advice do you have for people with concerns about their safety now as they're returning to work, people like servers and bartenders?
Advice in the, I mean,
Well, they're that are concerned about, you know, that they're being told.
it's just people going back to work after not having been there and concerned. Look, I understand, and there is, I think, reason to be very careful. I think that everybody should, if you follow the mitigations that Dr. Ezike and the experts have been providing to us, have been telling us about for some time now, it significantly reduces the possibility of contracting coronavirus. So people who are going back to work, I mean, they should stay safe. They should follow mitigations that they're aware that they need to follow. And of course, if there's a workplace in which they're made to be unsafe by virtue of an environment that's been created there, that that they feel unsafe, and they should report that.
Sheehan from Politico wants to know, can you offer status and metrics on contract tracing and how the state's doing in that regard?
Yeah. I can't as of today. I mean, I have regular meetings about contact tracing and the progress that we're making. I can tell you that hiring is going on all across the state by county and local public health departments. We're providing grants to those departments for doing that hiring. So we've seen the numbers of contact tracers improving, and as a result, they are making more calls, but I can't give you the metrics today. I just don't have them in front of me. I promise, though, one of these press conferences soon will be an update on our contact tracing. We are indeed making progress.
She also asked a question, and quite frankly, I think it's a growing one, seeing that there's been no action in Congress about help to states or local governments.
Yeah.
About at what point does the state look at the possibility of pay cuts, furloughs, or layoffs in
Yeah.
response?
Obviously, we look at that all the time because we want to be, prepared. But the fact is that I think there's also a growing consensus that the Senate will likely take up a bill of some sort. I don't know whether it'll be the HEROES Act or portions of the HEROES Act in July. That's now the schedule that we've been told about. So we're, eagerly awaiting that.
Tony Arnold at EEZ says the city of Chicago says it's capping outdoor gatherings at 100 people in phase 4. Does that go against the state's limits of gatherings of up to 50 people, with the one exception being at outdoor seated spectator events?
Yeah, local governments, municipalities are free to make more stringent guidelines, but not looser guidelines than the ones set by the state.
So does this
So that may be a goal. I mean, I know that, as you know, several weeks ago, the mayor was advocating for opening up indoor dining, which wasn't in line with our guidance at the state level. But she understands that we have a whole state here that needs to be, kept safe and healthy. So, these are, I think, it is absolutely appropriate for mayors and other elected officials and others to express themselves about what they'd like to see happen in the state. And these are all things, especially coming from people who run municipalities, that we take seriously and consider how we might accomplish that goal.
question from WLL Radio. What is the testing criteria for inmates inside state prisons? Do they need to be showing symptoms in order to receive the test?
So I know that's evolved, and my apologies for not having the latest guidance about prisoners. I can tell you that we are testing staff on a regular basis, making sure that we're covering them and people who have symptoms, prisoners who have symptoms as well. But I can't tell you exactly what the latest guidance is. As you know, as we've had more and more testing available, the guidance in each area has loosened up a bit so we can take in more patients or more people who are concerned about whether they might have contracted coronavirus.
Charlie Myers in Chicago Public Square says Dr. Fauci says a COVID-19 vaccine may be available before the end of the year. What can you tell us about Illinois plans to determine who gets a vaccine first whenever it's available?
We want everybody to get the vaccine, and of course, we want to make sure that the people who are most vulnerable, who are able to get a vaccine, are the ones that are served as soon as we can. So, I have been in somewhat regular touch with Dr. Fauci, not on this subject particularly, but in my next conversation with him, I'll certainly ask him what he thinks the right kind of measurement for who goes first is, because I really value his opinion.
Question from PTW. In the Phase 4 guidelines for meetings and social events, dance floors must be closed. Could you explain what the decision was for paying for venues to close dance floors? What about couples planning on having a wedding or other social gatherings that include dancing? Isn't there a way to socially distance and dance?
You know, I have to say I didn't write the dancing rules for weddings, so I can't, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm quite a dancer, but I'd be happy. I don't know if Dr. Zeke has anything to add about dance floors, but.
Again, I think with all of this, just understand that I think I've been trying to push for start low and go slow. I think as we've seen all these states who have opened, have rising cases, it makes sense to make small steps, evaluate, then progress, as opposed to try to do too much at once, and then it's really hard once the floodgates are open to really get the water back in. So, you know, we are open. I mean, we all want the same thing for people to be able to, you know, celebrate their weddings or other exciting milestones in their life. And I hope that we'll get there, that we're taking things a step at a time. We know that it would be pretty hard to socially distance. You know, the dance floor is usually that small, you know, square of parquet, and it's maybe not easy to maintain 6 feet, and you know, people are moving. So we will again evaluate. I mean, we're going to be in this quote phase 4 for quite a while. So let's get started, and then we'll keep looking and evaluating. And you know, as we see what are the certain situations that are actually more problematic, and then that will tell us which things to slow down on and which things maybe we can move ahead on. So more to come. More to come.
One last question, totally non-COVID related, Governor. For Danielle Lopoulos at WEDC, did you have any meetings or other discussions with Speaker Madigan about his job recommendation list for your administration? And did his recommendations factor into your hiring decisions? If so, how much?
Well, let me begin by saying that I'm very proud to have assembled the most diverse administration in the history of the state of Illinois. I received recommendations from an awful lot of people, many before I ever became governor, people who served on my transition committees. Indeed, some of the leaders of my transition committee ended up serving with me, and people, you know, who just because they were on one person's list does not mean that that was the only person that recommended them. You can imagine that Governor Jim Edgar was somebody I didn't need a recommendation about from anybody. He served as a co-chair of my transition, and I have a lot of respect for him, and I've known him for 15 years. And I would say the same thing about former Representative David Harris. You know, he was the minority leader of the Revenue Committee before I made him the director of our Department of Revenue. And let's also look to Barbara Flynn Curry, the majority leader of the Illinois House, who's, I think, widely respected, a real true progressive leader. You know, and so that you can imagine the number of people that said something to me about the possibility of bringing her into my administration. So I'm very proud of the administration that we put together. We got recommendations from lots and lots of people. I'll just give one example of Jim Bennett, who was written about in this article that is being referenced, I think. I probably received 16 calls. I mean, you know, I knew Jim Bennett, but getting 16 calls from people out in the communities that knew him, the communities that really matter in the Department of Human Rights arena, getting recommendations from that many people. I mean, he didn't even know he was on a list that was given to me by the speaker. So anyway, I'm proud of the work that we did to have an administration that's fully vetted, people who actually know what they're doing. They've got the resume and the background for the jobs that they were put into.
But did you have any conversations or meetings with Madigan about people and the list?
I think, like with many people who brought names forward, they would say something to me about a name. or, you know, I'm talking about now, you know, the Black Caucus, members of the Black Caucus who brought lots of names forward, the Latino Caucus, lots of names forward. Not to mention, remember, I had a whole life, you know, before I was governor in the private sector, and there were quite a number of people that I know from my work in nonprofits, not to mention in my work in business, that we did a lot of work to, you know, that I got lots of recommendations from people that I knew for people in positions. So, you know, I don't think that's unusual. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Amy Jacobson here. Just have one question for you. We've had a number of people reach out for a station saying that their loved ones in nursing homes were exposed to COVID-19 because patients were sent to the hospitals but brought back before the 14-day period. And do you know the total number of deaths in nursing homes and assisted living centers across the state?
Yes, it is. It's about 30. I mean, it's not exact, but it's in about 3,300.
It's almost half.
It's about
You're talking
54
about just
total
cases.
deaths. Oh, total cases?
I'm sorry, do you
Cases or
mean people who
deaths?
came back from somewhere else, or?
No, how many people in nursing homes and assisted living centers passed away due to COVID-19?
You think about 3,300.
Okay, and are we doing anything different now? I know we're separating floors in some places. Are there any just solidly COVID-19 nursing homes?
There are about 25 facilities that have a special designation as that are the ones that will receive only COVID-19 patients. They can take them as a transfer from another facility. They can take them from the hospital. I will say that we have had a decrease in the number of weekly totals of deaths from the nursing homes week after week for the last 6 weeks. So we are doing better. We're having fewer deaths, and we are having, I think, better compliance with doing mass testing, which helps us identify positive sooner so that we can separate and isolate as needed. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and I think the stats show that with the decreasing number of fatalities in nursing homes across the state.
All that information is publicly available, so I'd urge everyone who has questions on specific numbers to visit websites.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.